Welcome to Sharing the Light, the Sunshine Cathedral's talk show webcast where we discuss theological, ethical, spiritual, and social issues with the cathedral's pastoral staff. Sunshine Cathedral is a metropolitan community church affiliated with the Center for Progressive Christianity. We're located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Now, we hope you will enjoy this episode of Sharing the Light. Hello, I'm Reverend Robert Griffin, and thank you for joining us today here on Sharing the Light. As always, we're joined by our senior pastor, the Reverend Dr. Durrell Watkins, now Reverend Michael Diaz, who is also one of our staff clergy at the cathedral. Our topic for today is we are asking the question, can tithing lead to wealth? So, Pastor, how can I be more wealthy through my tithing?
Well, actually, that is a real question that's asked us. Someone had been reading some prosperity gospel kind of thing and had been trying to tithe their way to wealth, and apparently it didn't work. So they were very, very frustrated that the gimmick didn't work. And so for some reason, wanted me to respond to why it didn't work, and I can't imagine why anything like that does or doesn't work. I don't teach the concept of tithing as a means of getting rich, though I do teach the concept of tithing. Now, wealth is first of all, if you live in this country, then by global standards, you probably experience some measure of wealth. I mean, there are people who are poor in this country, but most people, I mean, if you have a job, if you have a home, if you have plenty to eat, you have a leg up on a lot of the planet. And so wealth is relative anyway. There are people who probably have a lot less than you have who feel quite blessed. And so whether or not you're wealthy depends on whether or not you think you are. Because if you appreciate what you have and you think what you have is enough, well, then it is. So a lot of it's about attitude and perspective. I think, though, that if you're giving to charity, if you're giving to religion, if you're giving to spiritual causes, and your motive is to personally benefit, well, that's just playing the odds. That's just buying a lottery ticket. And that works for some people. Sometimes a person's lottery ticket hits the big number and they win big, but a lot of people don't. It's called gambling. And so to this person who was trying to sort of tithe their way to wealth, maybe, they just didn't get the winning lottery ticket. They were risking something and it didn't work out for them. If they want to make more money, they might want to try to get a promotion at work or get a second job or develop a savings plan, or there are ways that you can have more money. But if what you want to do is to invest into the place that invests in you, if you want to make sure that the place that encourages you is strong and there for other people, if you want to sort of give back to the place that builds you up and affirms you and gives you hope, well, then tithing is the way to do that. And one of the things you do get out of that is that you feel invested in something bigger than yourself and in something that you really believe in. And that does feel good. That can be a wealthy sort of feeling in a spiritual sense. But how you spend your money, how you save your money, how you invest your money, I don't know that that's really connected to tithing, although tithing is a discipline. And so the person who has the discipline of tithing may have the discipline to not overextend their credit cards, to put some money away in a savings account, and all that stuff too. It could be related. But I think we tithe because that's one of the ways we worship. And anytime that we worship authentically, we're going to feel blessed. And so I think tithing is part of feeling blessed. It's not necessarily a get-rich-quick scheme. And even if that were the motive, I would still challenge the motive.
Okay. Michael, how about you? Your take on this tithing?
Well, I think Reverend Dr. Durrell Watkins said something key, and that's people feel invested when they tithe. I think one of the reasons why a lot of people tithe, and why we should ask people to tithe, is because when people give some type of stake in something, when they have a stake in something, they are more likely to participate actively. And so if someone says, I want this church to be successful, I want this ministry to be successful, okay, so I give towards that. Well, that giving towards that requires them and makes them make sure that they get an investment on this, and that the whole community and that the whole ministry becomes blessed by this. And so by having an investment and feeling this investment, you in turn are almost forcing yourself, because it's a response, to really make sure that this ministry, this investment really comes back tenfold, a hundredfold. And so I think in that sense, wealth is possible. It could come about it. But even more so, I think we should go to the word abundance more than anything.
There are guests, and there are renters, and there are owners. And tithers are owners. The people who tithe into a ministry are the people who are taking ownership of the ministry. Well, in the sense that you are one of the owners of a growing and important ministry, well, that is a form of wealth. And so, I mean, it's about perspective. It's about how you define things. It's about attitude and how you look at it. But I do think that you give for the joy of giving. And then, of course, I do believe in sowing and reaping. I do believe that any kind of seeds that you sow in your life are going to produce something. And so as you give, something's going to result in that giving. It may or may not be that a long-lost relative, leaves you $1 zillion. That may not be what happens, but you will feel part of ownership in something wonderful, and that's going to feel good. Now, we're using a word, by the way, tithing, and maybe not everyone knows what that word means. Tithe is a word. It comes from Scripture. It means a tenth. And in the Hebrew Scriptures, it was part of the required way to worship in the community was to give a tenth. And then there were other tithes. There were other offerings you gave above and beyond the tenth you gave of your agricultural produce, and that was sort of a social network. This was in a theocracy where religion and government were the same, and so this was basically the tax system, and it's how you provided for widows and orphans and the needs of the community, and for the priests of the temple and all that sort of thing. So that was that. In New Testament times, it was more separate. You tithed to your religious community, but you also paid taxes to Caesar, or maybe you were encouraged not to, and you were taking on the government or whatever. But they were separate. But in both cases, it was about taking care of people. In our culture, we live in a very different sort of world, and we have a different taxation system. But we still know that when we give to something that gives to us, we're assuring its success. And as we are participating in the circulation of divine supply, we feel more invested in it. And it is a way of growing spiritually, is to invest in the places and into the systems that help us grow spiritually.
Yeah, and this may be a part two to this conversation also, because I'm thinking of a phrase that someone once said that, we've seen people who tip their waiters more than they give to their churches. And that may be me meddling just a little bit in folks' business, but, I think it is about, as you said, I think about priority is where people place their emphasis on what they want to support. And so that concept of tipping waiters more than we give to churches.
You would never give a bartender less than 20%. Of the tab. I mean, you would never give the person who cuts your hair less than 20%, or the bartender less than 20%, or the cab driver less than 15 or 20%. I mean, you're very generous, but sometimes you think in church, I have $1, let me put it in the plate. Well, you value your haircut, or you value your cocktail, or Jesus really did say it. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So as we grow an attachment to our spiritual community, we of course want to invest more and more in it. I never say you've got to give 10%. I think if you're giving 5%, you're giving generously. The thing is to give joyously and consistently. And as you grow, you'll probably want to give more. But the thing is to give consistently and generously to the place that's giving something to your spiritual growth.
Amen.
I want to thank you both, and I got an amen from Michael. So I want to thank you both for joining us here again on Sharing the Light as we have explored this topic of, can tithing lead to wealth? Thank you for joining us on Sharing the Light. Thank you for joining us for another great episode of Sharing the Light. Tell your friends about this online ministry, and when you're in Southeast Florida, make sure you worship with us on a Sunday at the 9 a.m., the 10:30 a.m., or the 6 p.m. service. And now for a final word from our senior pastor, the Reverend Dr. Durrell Watkins.
Email me at durrell@sunshinecathedral.net if you have a religious question or if you'd like to subscribe to our daily devotional magazine, Spirit and Truth. We'll send it anywhere in the United States for an annual donation of any size. You can also email us prayer requests, or you can make donations on our website, www.sunshinecathedral.org. You'll also want to check out our great performing arts series, religious education classes, conferences, and other exciting activities. For now, we wish you many blessings on your spiritual